Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for being here today. We're going to give it about 30 seconds for folks to join from the waiting room, and then we'll get started. Thank you so much. Looks like people are slowly coming in from the waiting room and logging on. We love to see it. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to give it maybe 10 more seconds for folks to come in, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Also love seeing some familiar names here, so glad you're all here with us today. We're gonna give it 5 more seconds. And all right, officially good afternoon and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our Small Business Strong webinar series on utilizing AI for small business. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Amber Haskell, and I'm the Vice President and Executive Director of the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce Foundation, and I have the pleasure of overseeing our Small Business Strong initiative. At the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce Foundation, we are dedicated to supporting small businesses across the Commonwealth through multiple initiatives, including our Small Business Strong webinar series. First and foremost, we would like to thank the State Street Foundation for their partnership and support of today's webinar and their dedication to making sure that all small businesses across Massachusetts grow and thrive. Before I introduce today's speaker, I just have a couple of quick notes. Firstly, this webinar is being recorded and will be shared on the Chamber's YouTube page shortly after the presentation. We will not be sending out slides. For those of you who are joining us live, please submit your questions throughout the webinar using the Q&A feature on the bottom of your screen, making sure to send to all panelists. Or you can email your questions to foundation@bostonchamber.com. I will be on at the end of the session to put as many of these questions as possible to Jessica. And now I have the pleasure of introducing today's speaker. Jessica Pang is a design leader and entrepreneur with 13 plus years of experience and more than 100 digital products launched. Originally from Seattle, this Boston University alum built a dual foundation in art and technology and has been a cornerstone of her career. She spent 7 years at an agency creating custom digital products while co-founding a startup and participating in 5 local accelerator programs. Later, she served as director of UX or user experience at a metaverse SaaS company where she collaboratively led growth from 0 to 15 million valuation in just 2 years. Today, Jessica freelances for small businesses while also working as a senior UX designer at a Fortune 25 company, bringing lessons from both corporate and entrepreneurial worlds to help people and organizations adopt AI with purpose. We know that this is a super popular topic and are extremely excited to have Jessica here with us today. Jessica, thank you so much, and I will pass it over to you.
Thank you so much, Amber, and thank you everybody for joining. I'm excited to share some of my learnings over the last few years of exploring and developing AI products. So I start off with a quote that really resonates, I think, with most of us when it comes to AI, is any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, because it really does seem a lot like magic. And it's not a wonder that because it seems like magic, that graphically it's been represented by these sparkles, something that's mystifying, magical, and approachable to describe something that is fairly complex, algorithmically and technologically. This isn't the first time that this has happened. 1990, Adobe Photoshop released their Magic Wand tool. It's a magic wand. And what it does is when you pick a specific color on an image, it can select that same color everywhere in the image with a click of a button. It really seems like something magical, but I think we're all starting to figure out that AI isn't as magical as it seems, despite all of the bells and whistles, despite a lot of what we see in prototypes these days. And so I would like to bring it back and say that everybody here entrepreneurs, creators, aspiring entrepreneurs every day are more akin to magic than AI is. It's what we do is take concepts and ideas out of thin air. We turn them into, in some cases, real life products, but in all cases, something that delivers value to not only ourselves, our families, and our communities. There's a lot of talk between AI versus humans, but I think especially now we're starting to realize it's AI and humans, and with purpose, that deliver the most value. So, here are a few of the AI tools that I've tested independently of my 9 to 5 job and some of my freelance clients. These are the platforms that I've been using. For anyone curious, this is around how much these platforms cost me monthly, with aside from OpenAI, which is more to do with the amount of tokens, and I put the token pricing there. And this is what I use them for. And this is what I still use now. So there are definitely applications that are better than others. And this is where I want to go next, especially things like agentic browsers like Perplexity's Comet, which functions very similar to ChatGPT. You can type in a piece of text, type in some natural language, ask it to do something like send an email, and using Gmail, and it'll open different browser tools to be able to execute that action all by itself. And it's pretty fascinating to see how AI agents start to navigate browsers independently from us driving it as humans. I'll give a little brief understanding of where we are today with generative AI. Artificial intelligence is this large umbrella that encompasses a lot of different things. We're going to talk about more generative AI, text to text, text to image, something that creates something new. Whereas before, we've been more discriminative when it comes to AI. Think of a spam filter, it classifies existing data. So today, and what's been viral for the last few years, is generative AI and the creation of seemingly something from nothing. The biggest problem that I see today when it comes to AI, and I'm sure many of you have seen this as well, is that it is kind of treated like real magic, but it really, really needs structure, context, and a system to deliver business value and impact. A lot of people talk about automating manual human driven processes and fully automating that. Sounds easy, right? AI should be able to take care of all of that for us. We're finding out that it's not as easy as we think it is. So, how do I even start? And you'll be relieved to know that best practices in business, product development, user experience design, all of these best practices and foundations that many of us have learned, either hit the ground running, learned it on the job, or learned it in school. A lot of that still holds up today with some slight tweaks, some slight push in a different evolutionary direction. So I'm going to start with AI readiness. How do we get ready for AI? Depends on the task, but I have segmented it into 4 different categories with clarity, focus, quality, and metrics. So there's a lot of text on these slides, but this is meant for you to see what the possibilities are. And I could send a list of all of these frameworks for you. But basically, these are the tools that I've been using and recommend to go with each of these categories. So first and foremost, just like with any business and product, you want to find the problem. You want to gain some clarity and understand your full ecosystem. Now, the evolution here is we're used to thinking about the ecosystems with humans, data, and systems. But now we also have to think about including AI in that demographic base. AI perceives information differently than we do. We see buttons, they see data and information. So we have to also empathize with them. The ways that I've done this, that I've found the most success, especially when you're first starting, is some sort of journey mapping. If there is a particular workflow that you're looking to AIify, then I would suggest writing down step by step from beginning to end what happens. Where do you get the data from? What type of data do you get? Where are the potential roadblocks that maybe aren't under your control? Maybe it's a third party system and you don't have control over the data that you receive. Those are crucial in understanding whether or not you can AIify that particular workflow or process. You can use some things like business model or product canvas to really understand what it is that you're trying to build, your business goals, and your potential users and who you're really designing for. And going out and talking to customers in the field, do some interviews, gather some surveys, competitive analysis, narrow things down with how might we statements and hypothesis creation, which we'll see in a case study a bit later. So find the problem. Second, prioritize, focus, everything everywhere, but not all at once. We can only build so much in a short amount of time. And as we all know, iterating quickly and failing fast is the best pathway to figuring out what's wrong so that we can understand and dedicate our time to what's right. So decide what matters most. What I recommend here is especially an effort versus impact matrix, which you see here on the right. It's very crucial that we sit down and compare what is really most important. And what we want to do is you want to be able to take the item and feature of the lowest effort and the highest impact as often as you can, and move through the list that way. And the priorities might change as time goes on. Structure and clean your data. AI is all about training the AI is all about quality. As much as you can, try to create a single source of truth. Get rid of any extraneous data, any duplicates, or any data that might be inaccurate as much as possible. Now, how do you do that? That really depends on the type of data. You can see that there's a lot of data structured in Excel, which is more typical, something like a spreadsheet format. But then you have things like images and media that require a little more effort depending on what you're doing with them. So more descriptive file names, add notes or tags as to what's in it. And as much as it sounds like I'm giving AI too much credit here, when in doubt, really ask the bot that you're working with. Ask ChatGPT, ask Gemini, how should I structure this data? And most of the time, it'll lead you in a direction. It might not be your definitive solution, but I do think it's a good place to start. And this fourth category is one of the most important. How do we know if something really is delivering value and working for us if we don't set our KPIs? What are our metrics? How do our metrics change to measure AI performance? I've modeled this aligned framework after Google's Heart framework. Google's Heart framework is typically used for evaluating user experience when it comes to products. The first letter of Heart is happiness, and AI, as last time I checked, doesn't experience happiness. So that's why this framework has to shift a little bit. So when we're talking about AI automation of manual tasks, I'll go over the first one briefly, which is autonomy. If the goal is to enable AI to perform tasks independently and reliably from a human, then the way we know that to be true is the signals where we're manually overwriting less. We're getting consistent outputs and reducing the time that we manually spend for a task. And here are some example metrics of percentage of tasks completed without human input, percentage of accuracy versus human baseline, lower task average completion time. So those are a few example metrics. It depends on what it is that you're doing. And so this is not an exhaustive list. These are simply examples to get you started. And really, what you want to do is focus on 2 to 3 of these dimensions at a time, because it can be very difficult to do everything all at once. So now that you are AI ready, AI prepared with the categories above, it's easy, right? Well, no, still no, but it's easier. The solution really lies in this middle bit. Some will call it the adoption gap, where people are exploring new technologies but not really realizing value from it. I'd like to think of it as something a little more magical than that. A lot of things happen in this in between, in this magical middle. This magical middle is where co design systems live. Before you get to full automation, AI needs to understand what is correct. It needs to learn how to do something that a human is currently doing. So you're hearing you're hearing this phrase a lot, human in the loop. And this is a key component of collaborative AI and understanding how we train the models so that it consistently gets the right data from humans and continually gets input from humans until the accuracy percentage is high enough and our confidence is high enough that we can start offloading tasks to full automation. As I said before, a human reading something and an AI reading something is vastly different. I had ChatGPT make this image here in the center of a human reading and AI reading. I think it does a fairly decent job. Read a piece of text, we imagine things, we can see it. AI reading, it turns it into tokens. Without getting too technical, here is another graphic on the right that I sourced, and I think it does a better job of telling that story. It sees a piece of text, it breaks it down into tokens, and then ultimately it breaks it down into indices, into numbers. So as you can see, the way that we perceive information is different, and so the interfaces to communicate with one another has to be different than we're used to. This is where trust is built. When I was beginning the automation project that I've been on for the last 2 years, in the beginning, even before AI existed, there was a distrust of automation, that the right people weren't being brought into the room for automation to really deliver what it said it was going to deliver in value to the users that were tasked to use it. So building this trust, this is where this happens. And about a year later is how long it took us for users to finally, after using the application, giving their feedback, really feeling like they were heard. Now they feel so confident in the data that they're receiving, and they are excited to see where it goes next now that that trust was built. Importantly, too, this is where organizational change can happen. It can expose, and has, in my experience, outdated workflows, things that may have been dysfunctional for a very long time or maladaptive and hasn't had priority set on it. So we can use the conversation of AI and automation to drive leadership to modernize processes. Now, during this middle iteration, goals may shift, as it does very many times in business, and sometimes the best decision is not to automate at all. There might be too many dependencies, too many third parties involved, things that are completely out of your control. So sometimes that really is the win. The win isn't automation. It's revealing what is ready for change. And knowing what's ready for change, that's where we're going to start seeing the value when we do change it. So, current state manual, ideal state, hands-free productivity. This magical middle contains a human in the loop section where the humans teach. They're spending the primary time of using the application more to teach AI how to do the thing that they do on a daily basis. And eventually gains enough confidence. It's a collaborative AI moment where humans now focus covering edge cases, but AI does most of the simpler work. So how we get there? Well, I'm a user experience designer, and so I lean back on my best practices with design thinking. You empathize to understand your ecosystem, you define the problem, you ideate that in many different directions, you create a prototype to bring it to life, you test it and get real feedback from your demographic to continue to understand how to better the product or go in a different direction entirely. Can you do this with less steps? Absolutely. That's what Lean UX was built for. You're building to learn. You build, you measure, you learn. Once again, our best practices come in handy here. A lot of the foundational understandings of how to create products are still here and still do work. So I do want to get into actual case studies and give you an example of how people locally, experts and entrepreneurs alike, are embracing AI. Now, you may tell me, Jess, you've been working in tech for 13 years. This must be easy for you, but I'm not a technical person. I recognize that. So, one of the first studies that I did in the last beginning of this year or so is I talked to a non-technical person, and they agreed to experiment with AI for one of the first times and see how that could apply to their current role as a social media manager for an entertainment company. So this is a non-technical expert, and this brief case study and experiment will show how we transformed his manual workflow and started to think about what AI could do and how it could help, mainly pertaining to social asset and copy generation. So we go back to AI readiness. Let's gain some clarity. Let's use journey mapping. He's got 5 years of experience at a major digital entertainment company. He has never coded or seen a line of code in his life. He has never journey mapped before, never even heard of the concept, and never explained his process of how he gets from A to B in his manual day-to-day tasks ever in his career. And I have found this to be a very popular, prevalent thing when I'm going from manual tasks to automation. A lot of the people that I'm talking to, a lot of the subject matter experts, they have never explained their process before. And there's so much nuance. And I sit there being like, wow, humans really are super smart. And I don't know how AI is going to do this. But when we start to break it down and really understand the data and where we're going and collect it cleanly, then it begins to show value. He's also a beginner with AI tools and hadn't even really used ChatGPT before this. So we went into Miro. I showed him a template. He filled it out. And then I introduced him a how might we statement. So how might we improve social media content creation workflow using AI? And through the journey mapping process, he logs his pain points at every step of the way. And one of the biggest sticking pain points for him is that it takes time to write social copy and also inject the lore of the IP, the storyline of a video game, for example, especially when it's rich and when it's deep and it's existed for almost a decade. So let's even get even more specific. Let's focus down even more. So we can use a hypothesis statement for that. And here's a template for that. We will achieve business goal if persona attains benefit or user outcome through feature or solution. Now, this magical middle here, we have to take into account that when we're designing these automation tasks, a human is eventually no longer going to be involved. So we have to treat AI like it is a user because it is. And eventually it will be the only user potentially for some tasks in the ideal world. So the hypothesis and how we center AI is we will achieve faster and consistent social content creation if AI can detect key elements in a photo and attains the ability to generate promotional copy through referencing existing material. And I'll be able to show that in a quick demo. I want to leave plenty of time for questions. So, quality and metrics. First things that we have to start to do is get all of our data into a central place. So we're using the paid version of ChatGPT to create a custom GPT. The custom GPT allows you to upload information to its knowledge base. So this knowledge here, you can see that we have uploaded some survey data through multiple spreadsheets. We've also given it a document that contains a storyline for a fictional video game, as well as a script for a potential trailer that we might want to release, and examples of social copy so that it knows how to write social copy the way that we would like it to. Also uploading some images of this fake video game so that it can understand the look and feel if we do need it to generate images. So once you've gathered all the relevant data and ensured that it's clean data and there's no inaccuracies or little inaccuracies, once you've done that knowledge transfer, now we have to understand, so what's the metric of success here? Well, we're going to try to save time and we're going to achieve an acceptable level of accuracy, something that he would feel confident pushing out the door. So that's where we want to iterate to. Now, the builds, the way that we get there, the prototypes that get us there, will land us somewhere short of that overall goal. But knowing that that is the goal, we'll keep iterating, we'll keep improving our prototypes until we reach it. So essentially, we're ready to do this framework. We're going to build something, we're going to measure it, and then we're going to learn from that insights so that we can build again. I will show a very quick demo, and then I will go over some quick insights of what other local businesses are doing. So I was using make.ai, and it's an automation tool that helps support connecting existing applications together. So you can see in this dashboard, have some scenarios, and I have social post generate and social post publish. This is the human in the loop scenario, where for the social post generate, really this automation will pull a photo from Google Drive that I can upload. It will then talk to ChatGPT, and then it will output a row in a Google Sheet for me to approve. So if I go to this section, you'll see that there's a picture of a birthday cake. The point was to have the AI understand what the image is and write social copy from it. So I'm going to download a random photo. Let's say that I'm going to download a photo of a banana. So let me download that. So we got a fresh peeled banana here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload this picture to this folder. It's uploaded. Now I'm going to kick off this automation. It can kick it off by itself because it's looking for something in that folder. But to keep costs down, I want to make sure that it doesn't do that every time, just in case I accidentally place too many files in there. And then it's going to cost me, who knows, depends on how many files. So you can see I pressed play, and it's looking at Google Drive. And now it's generating that content. And once it's done doing that, it will then populate the review queue. Because we're talking about human in the loop. We're trying to do quality assurance. We're seeing what it's getting right, and we're seeing what it's getting wrong. So, what do I see here? It generated, this wasn't here before, this row 10. You'll have to trust me on this. It says, peel back the layers of adventure in virtual realms where magic and technology coverage like a banana, converge like a banana, unveiling its potential, ready to forge your legend in a world of customizable armor and dynamic realms. So I'm going to say, yeah, we can approve that. Let's go ahead and approve it. So I've approved it. I'm going to go back to my scenarios and I'm going to go to social post publish. Now, lately, Instagram hasn't been working. That's the danger of third-party tools. But so if I click run, it's going to go ahead and run this. And you'll see that I apparently have an error. So this sometimes happens. I did test this last night and I tried and true, of course. There are sometimes going to be errors here. So, oh, I see. I know what I did. This is why we have to have clean data. So I'm supposed to say that it's approved. It stopped me. It saved me here. This is supposed to be approved. It said, hey, this isn't approved. I'm not going to actually do that action. Let me go ahead and refresh this and see if that'll go ahead and kick off. And if I can't get it to work, that's totally okay. But ultimately, what it does do is that it will post social copy. So you can see here, for example, that there is a picture of a dog, and that was generated from this line here, where unleash pure joy in a virtual adventure as a vibrant and playful pup. So I don't want to spend too much time on this. I'm sure that if you want to see it actually working, I can pass on a recording of that. But it will typically go ahead and post to these other social medias. But this is the trial and error piece. And this is what happens when we start to take third-party tools in places that we can't always control. So that was a great experience for him, and he gained a lot of insight as to how he might start to think about adding additional AI tools to his skill set as a subject matter expert, and have a plan for if his managers come to him and tell him, "Hey, I would like a plan for AI. You have any thoughts?" And then he's empowered to share what he's learned. Now, briefly, I will go over a few sentiments about how entrepreneurs are using AI. So, Women of Color Entrepreneurs has a mission of women supporting women, especially women of color, to grow their businesses. Here's a demographic breakdown of the industries represented in this organization that I've been so wonderfully and humbly a part of for very many years. Top use cases, taking off the shelf tools, trying to save them time and on repetitive tasks, marketing, customer service, content generation, sales and operation. People are saying the right AI for the right scenario can make wonders, saving them time with better decision making. The value overall, everyone's curious but not AI confident yet. People who are 1 to 2s in a value scale of 1 to 5. They're typically using generative tools for content drafting and summarization. 4 and 5s and a few 3s often integrate AI tools a little bit more deeply in their workflow with support with operations, analytics, or other workflows. And some are seeing game-changing impact. Some of the challenges is they don't know where to start. Some of the concerns is keeping the humanity. data privacy, loss of human creativity, bias, and ethical concerns. Speaking about that, so why AI with purpose? Well, would you make your next business decision based on a coin flip? Sounds ludicrous, but AI operates on probability and not truth. So when we start to use AI tools without care, without very strict discernment, it's almost like relying on a coin flip. We're seeing this in the form of a different type of SEO poisoning. So, what would be next? Recently, Google's AI overview surfaced the incorrect number for a customer service hotline for travel sites like Royal Caribbean. This is because it's based on probability, AI went out and found that there was more content that scammers had created on a fake number than the actual official website for Royal Caribbean's customer service hotline. And unfortunately, successfully scammed several people. So when quantity outweighs credibility, the algorithm amplifies the solution. So that's why we do AI with purpose. AI is powerful, and every power has a price, whether it be resources like energy and water. And sometimes in the healthcare industry, it can be humans' lives. It is crucial we understand the problem first before automating the solution. So thank you for being here today and future-proofing yourself for the next iteration of product development, product design, and solutions. Here's a summary of all the things that we've learned. And ultimately, this will prepare you for what a lot of us designers are starting to see, which is a UI-less future. Interfaces bridge understandings for humans, but not for machines. So if that's the case, what other solutions might we think about differently? And with things being more text-based, does it potentially make the digital world much more accessible to some people with certain disabilities? It's definitely a possibility. So I'm going to stop there. And once again, thank you for coming. Connect with me on LinkedIn if you want to talk more. And we'll open it up to questions.
Jessica, this has been incredible. Um, For those of you who are on live, please go ahead and go into that Q&A box. Go ahead and ask any questions you might have. I have one already that I'm gonna pose to you, Jessica, which is, um, do you know of any existing AI tools that provide business intelligence and can help small business owners make quantitative operational decisions? For example, forecasting demands, or plan productions.
Hmm. When you can you elaborate on planned productions?
Unfortunately, I can't. If
Oh, okay.
someone is in the chat or who asked this question would like to do a follow-up, please go ahead and throw it in the chat. But I think forecasting is an interesting one because I've heard
Yeah.
this before of, hey, I'm looking to expand or maybe or here's a great example. I know I want to go in for a loan.
Hmm.
And to do that, I know I'm going to need to forecast out the next, year, 2 years, 3 years in terms of demand. Is there a tool out there that I could say, hey, here are my current sales, based on current market trends, what are projections for the next, 6 months, year, 2 years, 3 years?
Yeah. So unfortunately, I don't know of specific tools when it comes to forecasting. Um, but what I do know, right, with ChatGPT and Gemini, um, once again, these are places to start. So if you can provide it specifically what you're looking for, what you would like to forecast, more often than not, there is going to be data that already exists on for it to pull some resources and for it to pull some solutions. But I know there are very many companies working on that, and it could be a way to start is to ask what companies are working on that. So even though you don't know the specifics, uh, ChatGPT and Gemini, they can help you figure out where to start to find more reputable data.
Question about the data privacy piece, and it's something you kind of mentioned as one of those concerns. Um, when you use a tool kind of like ChatGPT, right, that's open and available to everyone, the information you're putting in right now then becomes available as part of a data set for everyone. For someone who might have more proprietary information, what tools do you recommend that I think are similar, cost effective, that you can say, hey, yes, this is what I want to use?
Yeah. So, when it comes to data privacy concerns, let me know if I missed any of this here. But when it comes from data privacy concerns, like I do work with um, HIPAA regulations, and even with the individual I talked about earlier, with Jason working at that digital media company. That's one of the reasons why a lot of digital media companies aren't using AI. They're slowly starting, but they're very concerned about IP leaks. So when it comes to those cases, uh, at least for the health sector, we're not using AI for any HIPAA related information at the moment. There's just too many risks involved unless we can get an agreement in place with a particular vendor, which is still something that is a major risk. So what I recommend is, still with with sensitive data, that might not be where you want to put it in any AI tool at the moment, unless you can get a signed agreement with that company to ensure your privacy. But even with ChatGPT, and when you turn off um, the settings for learning and being able to parse through your data, it still has to go through it to ensure that you're not violating any of their own policies, whether it be related to safety, etc. So, uh, if you got private data that you don't want shared anywhere, that I would caution against that unless you can get an agreement with the company itself.
For a small business with limited tech resources, what would be a realistic first AI-driven tool to adopt that shows measurable ROI in under 6 months?
Yeah, once again, it's like, AI isn't as much of a smoking gun or silver bullet as we want it to be. Uh, truly to define truly to deliver value requires a deep understanding of what your problems are now, because but ChatGPT and other like if you have small resources, like I wouldn't jump straight to paying for all of these resources. I did that so that I could go ahead and experiment and take one for the team and give you my results, right? But I don't necessarily recommend that unless it's exactly what you need, and it and so I would start with the free tools. I would start with Gemini. I would start with Copilot. Anything that is tagged onto your existing subscriptions, I would start there because it is a really great place to start. And it can help you go through some of these frameworks that I provided here today to help you identify what that problem is that is going to give you a return on investment. Like even at working at a large company, right, where we've got 70,000 people, billions of dollars, and all these resources, right? Even with us, we have our own political internal issues, I'm sure, but that the red tape always slows some things down. But even so, with all of our resources, defining the problem is really hard. But we're still using our tried and true methods to do that, and we're using AI to help brainstorm where we what we're missing, what we're not seeing. So you do have to figure out what the problem is that you need to solve. And I think that with limited resources, try to use anything that's already within your subscription, and it'll give you a really great place to start.
What are the biggest risks or pitfalls small businesses should avoid when adopting AI?
Yeah. So I go back to uh, really. jumping in a little too soon. We all need to slow down to speed up. You're going to hear me a lot say, and maybe this is part of my user experience background, is we really want to understand what our problem is, who our users are, what we're really building. And I see that time and time again, small and big companies alike, where leadership, for example, or the loudest voice in the room, they may not be the demographic that you're building for. They may not be the one directly contributing value. They may be a stakeholder, and it is very essential to make sure all parties involved are seen and heard. However, one of the things that I have to advocate for in my profession is for the person who is going to be the end at that end user spectrum, the person that's going to use it every day, the person that I have to empower, who will advocate for the tool and empower others to also use the application or tool, and that will generate revenue. So talk with your users, talk with the people who are your demographic, really understand what their problem is. I've had it many times where leadership who did something, did that process, did that task 15 years ago. And they're like, oh, I know it like the back of my hand. And then, things change, things are different, and their insights are valuable. But ultimately, we've got to understand what we're building for. And once you get that, and once you can define that succinctly, and AI tools can help you with that, use it to really hone in on what that problem is. And then you're going to make the best decisions and spend less money making those decisions by getting it as right as you can the first time.
I have a question that seems like it's a follow-up kind of to that first question I asked. Could AI be used to forecast my inventory needs? For example, could I input data on previous months' inventory orders and sales and have it give me more information about how much inventory to order in future months?
Yeah, you can definitely do that. If we're going back to that quality aspect of and that knowledge data transfer moment, if you can give it as much information as possible, and it's your data, so it's going to be so specific to you, it's probably going to be the most useful thing out there. If you can train it on that data, and it's probably going to give you a really good look of what's to come, and future forecasting calculations. You just need to make sure to give it as much data as possible, and that the data is structured consistently. Some of the tools that I'm working with, we're ingesting like 600,000 or more documents, and they may or may not be the same because just structure changes over the years. Third party tools we've used that have different templates have changed over the years. And so now we're faced with the task with structuring all of that data in a consistent manner so that there's a single source of truth, so that the AI has no confusion as to what is the right answer.
Awesome. I like that piece too. I was in a session a couple of weeks ago that they said learn how to ask your AI tool um how to ask it questions so that because the more specific you get, the better the answer is going to be. And they said, you think you might need two, three sentences, but really you might be needing like four or five paragraphs to actually get the value that you're looking for. And that the more you kind of use it and refine, the more likely you are to figure out how much data to give it. So I love that answer. Um, do you find AI is best used for initial brainstorming and ideation? Or tweaking and advancing already established ideas of your own? Is it best to try using it at all stages of development?
Yeah, I think that it can be used at all stages. Like I've been on this project for an AI project for about 2 years, and so I was using it at the beginning, and I'm still using it now. That whole cycle that you've seen with like building and learning and validating, we've done that cycle, that design thinking cycle about 30 times in the last year or so. and we're still doing it. It's not over. We're doing it until I'm either off the project or the project gets defunded, right? It's one or the other. And AI has been helpful throughout the process because you're always going to go back to that brainstorming phase. You've solved one problem and now you have to go and figure out what that other problem is. The beauty of it in later stages is you have more data. You've probably done more interviews. You've probably ran more surveys. You've probably learned so much more from all of the other builds that you've done. So now it's that diligence of keeping that data in a structured format so that when you ask the your custom chat GPT or the LLM of your choice or the AI tool of your choice, it will still have that data readily accessible, easily accessible uh, to pull from to make to help you make more determinations.
Awesome. How important is it to explicitly disclose that something has been produced with the assistance of AI, or is it assumed that everything might be developed using AI these days?
I would err on the side of disclosing that. It really depends too on how much you've used it. Like throughout this whole presentation, I have used AI. I've given this presentation or similar presentations to this at least two other times in the past year. And I'm still learning. I'm still adding new things, and I'm still using ChatGPT to help me refine things. So, um, yeah, that's. I think I lost where the question was.
I guess I've seen
Oh
what are
yes,
the ethical
disclosure,
like implications, right?
disclosure.
Like should I be
Yes,
like, "Oh, hey, by the way, like I made this introduction for this speaker and I threw it into AI and that's how I got this paragraph." Like do when should we disclose and when is it kind of like, "Oh yeah, of course you used AI. It's,
right.
you had to cut that information and synthesize."
Right. Yeah. Especially when it comes to images, there's this big ethical concern about AI in general, right? It scrapes data from the internet without regulation, right? Artists aren't getting paid their dues, and there's a lot of artists against AI, and that's why there's such a large negative connotation in the art field. So, um, unfortunately, AI is viral and AI is rampant. It is likely uh, that that the things that we're encountering on a daily basis are made from AI. I think it's helpful to disclose that as often as possible to help with this ethical quandary and to really give the users context and understanding of how much discernment do we need to have, knowing that maybe a large percentage of this was just AI. I think that's that biggest problem. The other thing is that some people are talking about AI and basically how it's collapsing in on itself, right? This idea of a snake eating its own tail. The more AI generated content that is outputted, the more that AI is going to learn on generated AI content. And so it kind of is this like perpetuating feedback loop of AI generated content. And that may not be the most accurate. Now, there are algorithms that companies are creating to help mitigate that, but this is because it doesn't know most of the time if that something is AI doesn't know that it's scraping AI data unless we and unless we give that regulation some policing or some enforcement, right? And this is why regulation is so important because this tool has a lot of promise, but like anything, if you let it run wild, we're inevitably going to come into a lot of issues.
I'm going to actually end on this question because I think well, I say that now, but who knows? I might ask one more. If you had to implement AI in one area of a small business immediately, what would it be and why?
It's a good question. Um, I would say I would do it at the beginning, right? Um, because like I said, even before AI, the biggest pitfalls when as a startup or a business, large or small, right? Uh, is the most one of the most costly things we can do is just be solving for the wrong problem. And so if we start at the beginning, and you might not have the funds to hire a user experience designer or hire a product owner, right? But this is a way where we can like a lot of people talk about democratization of skills, right? You don't have to be a user experience designer or a product owner to use tools like ChatGPT and Gemini at the start because it will already have the basics of what user experience and product design and business um, frameworks already embedded. So even with using the list of tools that I've provided in this talk, using ChatGPT at the beginning to help you ideate and understand your problem, that's where I would put it. Big emphasis on you find the right problem, you will find that value.
Amazing. Jessica, thank you so much for your time today, for sharing this information with all of us. And thank you all who are joining us live for spending your hour with us to learn a little bit more about AI utilization and how it can support small business. Uh, Thank you again to the State Street Foundation for your partnership in making today's webinar possible. Before you go, I'd like to share a couple of upcoming initiatives and events that we hope you'll join us for. On November 13th from 12 to 1 p.m., we will be hosting another webinar on navigating tariffs, a guide for small business. This webinar will go over the U.S. tariff policy updates and what they mean for small businesses. So for those of you who asked about forecasting, you're thinking about tariffs, this would be a wonderful webinar to join. If you are a small business owner or you know of a small business who's looking for support in solving a challenge with your small business, Small Business Strong has an initiative called First Call. First Call connects Massachusetts-based small businesses to a business advisor who can help you unpack your challenges, um, and connect you to resources in your local community to help with that business growth. So it's almost like we're that piece of AI for you to help you understand your challenges, um, connect you with resources, and then, of course, use those AI tools to help build upon that. To sign up for webinars or participate in the First Call initiative, you can go to gbccfoundation.org to sign up. And you can also sign up for our small business webinars to stay in the loop and make sure you're getting content that's relevant to your small business. Our Small Business Strong initiatives and webinars and programming are initiatives of the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce Foundation, which is a 501(c)(3) nonprofit organization. Events like this are made possible by the generous support of our funders and partners. I feel a little bit PBS-y right here, but if you would like to make a donation to help us continue to create events like today's webinar, please click the link in the chat to donate. A suggested donation of about $25 would be greatly appreciated. Thank you all again for joining. Thank you, Jessica, for presenting today, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Take care.